The 90s was the rise of teen movies. Teen movies like 10 Things I Hate About You, She's All That, Romeo and Juliet, and American Pie. Giving these audiences a somewhat unrealistic teen movie, as this stuff doesn't exactly happen in every teenager's life. Larry Clark, however, did the exact opposite. Larry Clark is an American film director, photographer, writer, and film producer. Born in 1943 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, learning photography at a young age. Also at a young age, Larry was experimenting with drugs. In 1964, Larry moved to New York, and from 1964 to 1965, Larry was drafted in the Vietnam War. After these experiences of the war and New York morbid teen angst, Larry created the book called Tulsa, which was his first book, which involves his friends' drug use and rebellion in black and white. But what we're focusing on today is his most popular and mainstream product called Kids. Kids has become one of the most disturbing yet educational yet eye-opening films ever created. Kids was one of the first movies to talk about the AIDS crisis and actually show how teenagers are today, especially in 90s New York. The film follows a group of teenagers displaying two perspectives. One of the perspectives is two boys, one by the name of Telly, who is known for taking virginities from virgins, and Casper, who is his sidekick, who does drugs and steals and drinks alcohol like it's water. The two boys wander the streets of mid-90s New York to find things to do. The other perspective, however, is Jenny, who lost her virginity to Telly but finds out that she is HIV positive. She spends all of her day trying to track Telly down. By the climax, little do they know, they have completely ruined their lives forever. But what made this film Larry Clark recognizable? Larry didn't grab mainstream actors at the time. Larry grabbed actors who were just regular teenagers, who weren't scared to try new things, going under the codes and conventions of acting. He used this to make the film be more authentic and realistic. Being around those New York kids who were obviously at a horrible place in time, these guys weren't exactly acting after all, but just living their lives. For example, the actor who played Casper, named Justin Pierce, was a very troubled individual. Tragically committed suicide in 2000, and Harold Hunter, who played Harold, who was a skater who tragically died from a heroin overdose. Larry didn't just grab actors who were playing characters, he grabbed actors who were familiar with these characters that they were playing. This just makes the film more realistic and more have a authentic tone to it. This wasn't the case with all of the actors, though. Rosario Dawson and Chloe Sevigny have become pretty popular actors, Kids being their debut film. Larry Clark uses non-professional actors in mostly all of his films. In his other film called Bully, the actors were actors, but also had a lot of problems, like their characters that they were playing. Clark tends to use natural lighting in his films, lighting that shows the dirty habitat that the characters surround themselves in. Using this natural lighting creates a realism effect to it, making the film feel like a documentary at certain points. Uses mise-en-scene with the clothing choices, as their clothing style in Kids includes New Yorker's skate scene. Even a vintage Supreme t-shirt makes an appearance. This gives the characters a more homeless look towards them, as their clothes is dirty, isn't preppy, and looks extremely New York. Larry Clark also used a relatively small budget with all of his films, Kids only going under $1.5 million. Larry Clark is said to have set out to make the great American teenage movie, like the great American novel. Before Kids, teen movies were relegated to the soft high school comedy, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and The Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and Dazed and Confused. Kids put a much darker, grittier spin on the high school story, often for the depraved underbelly of teenage counterculture, rather than the meet-cute suburban sex comedy that largely comprised the genre. In the early 90s, the end of the tragic AIDS crisis was occurring. Larry used this historical event to influence the whole movie. But how and why did Larry engage his audience? Personally, I was engaged by this film because of how different it was from all of the other teen movies I would watch. The mise-en-scene of the clothing that made the characters look so much more realistic, the screenplay that made it so real felt like a documentary, and the fact that the movie was deemed to be disturbing is really what engaged me the most. The soundtrack was also something that really made me enjoy the movie, as it has so much old school rap and metal music. The setting of the movie engaged me the most, due to the mid-90s New York. I personally enjoy a lot of stuff about New York, especially the art scene, like Jean-Michel Basquiat and Keith Haring. So watching this reminded me of it and made me like it even more. The acting was so real, it often feels like if this movie was filled with good actors, it wouldn't be the same. Even though they weren't not actors, their acting skills were insane and made the movie feel more real. This film engaged me as well because it's similar to a lot of movies that are popular today, like mid-90s and Skate Kitchen and even Euphoria. In conclusion, Larry Clark has made films and projects that represents the teen rebellion like no one has ever done before, showing how teens are in today's time and talking about issues that were never spoken about, creating bigger names for other actors and directors, and creating one of the most controversial and educational films in the world. Larry Clark still and will always be inspirational to all the other directors who are trying to make teen movies. And that's all I have said today. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like for more content.